Federal Executive Council approves draft medium-term expenditure framework 2023 to 2025.
Insecurity. Senate demands more from security agencies.
The country's national carrier, Nigeria Air, receives nod, leaves aircraft for immediate commencement of operations.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on issues in Nigeria's aviation industry.
For a while now, the global aviation industry has had its share of challenges, with countries taking a slice of these issues, Nigeria inclusive.
And the most daunting of these is the increase in the price of aviation fuel, also known as Jet A1. It moved from about 300 naira a litre to over 800 naira in less than 6 months.
Now, this has forced operators to either increase the cost of airfares or temporarily suspend business operations on some other routes, while some of the airline operators have also engaged in continuous delays or outright cancellation of flights.
Yes, and though the airline operators of Nigeria, AON, apologized to consumers for the inconsistencies, it also explained that consumers should expect major disruptions in scheduled flight operations, including cancellation and unnecessary delays across all airports in the country.
Now, Nigeria's aviation minister, Hadi Surika, says the challenge of accessing foreign exchange in the country has also aggravated the situation. He, however, adds that the government is doing a lot to address the situation and hopes that the refurbishment of the country's refineries will aid in bringing down the current price of aviation fuel.
You may recall the averted air crash at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport this month, which prompted the suspension of Dana Airlines air transport license and air operator certificate indefinitely with effect from midnight of Wednesday, 20th of July 2022 by the Nigerian Aviation Authority, as well as the shutting down of operations by Aero Contractor Airlines after over 60 years.
Well, yeah, Kirian, that's right. But just to add a slight amendment, what Aero announced, if you recall, was that it was suspending its operations, not shutting down. Shutting down would mean close of business, by the way, yes. Yeah, but it says that it's suspending its operations and it's Nigeria's oldest airline now, also the first private airline in the country. Now, the aero contractors and Dana Air, which made an air return at Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, are two major airlines that, of course, while they operated eased air travel in the country. So the implications of their temporary exit at this time is quite serious, Kieran.
Yes, and just yesterday, the Federal Executive Council gave approval for the national carrier, Nigeria Air, to lease aircraft for immediate commencement of operations. This development could also help ease the country's air travel issues. That is, if they have a regular source of Jet A1, which of course is the major issue.
Right now, yes, yeah. So how are you going to get how are you going to get your own supplies? And then the maintenance of aircraft, which is denominated in hard currency, also has to contend with availability of forex. And you can see how the exchange rate is galloping on the parallel market. And in the meantime, the National Assembly saying that, look, they have to summon the governor of the central bank to explain the rapid devaluation, or if you like, depreciation.
Exactly, which is a result of market forces. Market forces, you know.
Well, how many countries leave their currency to the operation of market forces?
We are not a production or producing nation. If you ask me, I mean, if you have less that you can export, you don't expect to have foreign exchange when you're not exporting as much as you should do at a certain stage of a country's life. That's just what it is.
Well, that's partly explains it, Kirian. It partly explains it. But beyond these challenges, other issues that confront the aviation industry include multiple taxation system, maintenance, we already talked about that, as well as welfare concerns for its staff.
Yes, the efforts of government in addressing infrastructural issues at airports in the country, especially in the last 3 years, have assisted in dealing with the demands of an ever-increasing passenger traffic.
Now, the terms also of a number of bilateral air services agreements with other countries and related businesses have direct impact on the aviation industry in Nigeria.
These issues inform our focus on issues concerning Nigeria's aviation industry. And thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria this Wednesday. We broadcast live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to another edition of the program. As Kirian indicated, we are live on the network service of the NTA from our Abuja headquarters studios. It's a wet morning here in the nation's capital. In the course of the program, we have our usual supplementary segments, and this includes business and newspaper review. For now, let's take the highlights of the morning news with Lydia Ochi. Good morning, Lydia.
Good morning, Kingsley and Kieran, and here is the morning news. The Federal Executive Council has approved a draft medium-term expenditure framework for 2023 to 2025. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning Zainab Ahmed announced this while briefing journalists after the weekly meeting of the Council presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. The size of the Nigerian economy, she says, is projected to rise up to between 225.5 trillion naira to 280.7 trillion naira during the period, thereby making the country retain its position as the largest economy in Africa.
Oil price is offset by lower oil output as at April, which has stood at 1.3 million barrels per day. NNPC attributes this low oil production to the high incidence of crude oil theft as well as pipeline vandalization. We reported to Council that gross oil revenues that have accrued January to April is 1.23 trillion compared to the prorated target for the period of 3.12 trillion. This represents just a mere 39%. That is for oil and gas revenue.
Senators of the opposition party have resolved to serve impeachment notice to President Muhammadu Buhari if he does not address the issue of insecurity in the country within 6 weeks. Minority Leader of the Senate, Philip Aduda, raised this through a motion which was overruled by President of Senate Ahmed Lawan, who said he was not aware of the motion as provided by the Senate standing orders.
First, you are supposed to cite the order. Second, you are supposed to discuss with me what you are going to discuss. You didn't. Thirdly, I read the progress report. Thirdly, when I read it, when some of our colleagues were still not listening. Thirdly, we have already passed that stage. Look at where we are today. So, just hold on, please. So, at this moment, that point of order, I don't know what it is, but falls flat on its face.
Walkout by the minority senators. Meanwhile, the presidency has described the walkout of PDP senators from Wednesday's plenary as babyish. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, says Senate President Ahmed Lawan's refusal to entertain the ridiculous motion to impeach President Muhammadu Buhari was quite appropriate and correct. He adds that rather than making a mockery out of voters by trying to imitate what they see in America, the opposition would be well advised that their time would be better spent tackling the pressing issues Nigerians face, such as the current global cost of living crisis. Their continued failure to do so goes some way to explaining why they remain in opposition. In contrast, the Buhari administration is committed to finding lasting solutions to the emerging security threats, including those left behind by the PDP in the South-South, the Northeast, and throughout the Federation. In the last 24 hours, 2 more Chibok girls were freed in addition to 3 brought home last week. The statement also indicates that these kinds of headline-grabbing stunts, for which the opposition is now well known, serve no one, least of all their constituents. Garba Shehu noted that oppositions are respectfully reminded that it is those same constituents that they were elected to serve and are paid to do so with public money. The statement also stated the APC would welcome their collaboration in the current administration's efforts to solve the problems Nigerians face on a daily basis, rather than wasting time attempting to impeach a democratically elected president at the end of his 2nd term. Garba Shehu stated that the opposition should ask themselves, do they want to be in government or do they want to be in the headlines? If they want to be in government, they should start acting like it and stop undermining Nigerian voters. Determined to derive maximum benefits from the abundant mineral resource potentials in the country, the Nigerian Mining Value Chain Regulations Policy has been approved by the federal government.
Whatever you mine, even if you are unable as the miner to process, we're inviting investors, we're having people who will build processing plants. This government of President Buhari, post-COVID, granted some funds, and this fund is being used as demonstration project for this mineral processing policy.
Approval has also been granted Nigeria Air, the national air carrier, to lease aircraft for immediate commencement of operations.
For the first instance, to do the runs, and then we progress. As to the make and type, most of them are either Airbus or they are Boeing, especially for the intercontinental and international flights. And this will start as domestic airline, and then would of course grow to become regional and international, also intercontinental.
Leaders must meet the demand for integrity, patriotism, and be result-oriented in the discharge of their responsibilities to Nigerians. This came to the fore at the induction of chief executive officers, chairmen and members of governing boards of federal parastatals and commissions in Abuja.
The minister exercises control at parastatals at policy level through the board of the parastatals only. The board must only operate as a part-time board in accordance with extant rules. The national development aspirations of our country are very well captured in the 2021 to 2025 National Development Plan, which is the product of a bottom-up approach in formulation with a very clear and coherent implementation strategy.
Police authorities in Ondo State have confirmed another gun attack in Owo. The attack, according to the police, occurred at Craneberg Construction Company in the town, leaving many injured. The victims have been taken to the hospital where they are receiving treatment, and the scene of the attack has been cordoned off by the police. And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kieran after this break. Stay with us.
All right, if you just joined us, this is Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service. Now, let's talk business. Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDEN, targets partnership with the D8 to strengthen economic and trade integration. Let's now join Kule Adeye for more on that.
The Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN, has hinted it will leverage on partnerships within the D8 to promote, encourage, and support the activities of MSMEs at the national level as well as within the D8 region to further strengthen economic trade and commercial integration. Developing aid is primarily established for the development of cooperation among countries like Bangladesh, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Malaysia, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Turkey. The Director General SMEDAN, Olawale Fasanya, remarked that having submitted a proposal, a positive response from the D8 Center for Small and Medium Enterprises is imminent. He is quite categorical that intimacy with key stakeholders will birth a positive shift in micro, small and medium enterprises development in Nigeria given its critical status in the economy. He equally identified regular interagency cooperation and networking with stakeholders to leverage on available opportunities to close the gaps among key players within the MSME space. Fasanya said the challenges of SMEs usually border on access to finance, market, equipment, information, technical and entrepreneurial skills, including workspace. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you very much, Kunle, for the business package. Coming up next for us is newspaper review.
Bayo Atoebi, you're welcome.
Thank you, Kira. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Paya, good to see you. It's another wet morning here in the
Yes,
capital.
yes.
Not cats and dogs, though.
Yes.
Yeah, but
It's drizzling. The kind of rain that makes you feel that it will soon be over, and before you know it permits the whole day.
Exactly.
in Benin, how it is described.
Yes.
Ogie we come.
How does that translate?
It translates to a kind of rainfall that doesn't allow goats to browse around because the rain is falling and they cannot be out. So the rain stops for a while and then they think they want to go out and then on and on. So Ugia will come. That's what it is called. All right, let's take a look at the three papers we have this morning. We have The Punch, The Nation, and also the window page of Al Jazeera. The lead story for the Punch newspaper, let's kick off with that. Lead story for the Punch newspaper comes with a kicker. ISWAP, that is Islamic State of West Africa Province. Fear spreads, presidency and senators clash over impeachment threat. Every three riders. Abuja, Nasarawa schools shot. Residents fear terrorist attacks. Slam federal government. Opposition senators give Buhari 6-week ultimatum to end insecurity. And presidency lampoons opposition senators, says they are babyish. You have details of that story on page 2. Now let's go above that. There's an earpiece there beside the nameplate. It says food crisis imminent. House raises the alarm. And Naira falls 34% to 710 Naira. Senate summons Emefiele. Subsidy probe. Reps say 23 oil firms unknown. And Khan's opposition to Muslim ticket godly, says Dogara. Dogara, of course, is the former Speaker of the House of Reps. Review water bill. State governors tell lawmakers. And then further down, you see the photographs on the front page there of the Punch, along with the headline, ASU strike. Labour continues protests, slams politicians again. Army rescues 2 more Chibok girls and others. Nasarawa cop rapes niece, Ekiti father impregnates stepdaughter. Banker and robber killed as gunmen wheel bullion van. That was in Abia State. Abuja, policemen invade Lagos house, rob businessman and brother. Those are the headlines. Al Jazeera is the same story we have for its lead. It says Al Jazeera now on Thursday rather. Senators to Buhari, end insecurity of face impeachment. You also have there, reps move to end ASU strike. 2023 budget, federal government to spend 5.33 trillion naira on salaries. Korea awards scholarships to 29 federal government officials. Tinubu Shatima Dogara kicks over Muslim ticket. I read that already. Nasarawa government orders closure of schools. That's primary and secondary schools. And APC nominates Gobri as new Senate leader and caucus chair. Kirian.
All right, now let's go to the Nation newspaper. Above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, we'll have some striking headlines here. Rising aviation fuel price forces airlines to cut flights. Rising aviation fuel price forces airlines to cut flights. It's on page 7. Of course, the governors reject water resources bill, inconsistent with the law. It's on page 28. Now, bakers seek suspension of government fees on bread. It's on page 8. And then Buhari appoints Omar as Kaduna Poly rector. The full details on page 2. Now, the lead story, there are stories before the lead story, rather. Let's get this. APC names Gabriel Senate leader, but Kingsley just read that. University strike, Labour, ASU, adamant, we can stay off work for 2 years. That's on page 28. Oshu NAF, partner on aviation city. It's fully captured on page 28. Now, the lead story, Senate in stormy session over renewed attacks by bandits. 3 riders to that. Minority senators walk out, give Buhari 6-week ultimatum. Security not a partisan concern, Senate tells opposition members. Federal government, we are bringing situation under control. Well, you can get the details of all that on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Let's bring him by you now.
Thank you, Kirian. Well, let's start with the good news that came from the Federal Executive Council yesterday, that the federal government has approved 3 aircrafts, one to be in the Boeing and the Boeing series to start Nigerian Air. That's the national carrier. And all things being equal, it will start its operation on domestic route and then grow from regional to intercontinental. The story that has dominated all the papers are the story on the impeachment. Some senators, predominantly of the minority party, walked out of the Senate plenary yesterday. The Senate had gone into executive session where this discussed issues relating to security. Upon resumption to plenary, the minority leader raised a point of order. The Senate president ruled that he was out of order because for 3 reasons, one of which was that he didn't cite the order for which he was raising a point of order. Accordingly, this led to the walking out of the plenary by most of the minority party leaders, led by Philip Aduda, the minority leader. Others who joined are the members of the People's Democratic Party, the Abuja, NNPP, and some All Progressive Congress members who actually did not succeed in winning their ticket back to the Senate. They kept on chanting, all we are saying is that Buhari must go, Nigeria must survive, Ahmed Lawal should follow. They addressed a press conference and they have issued a 6-week ultimatum to the president to resolve the worsening insecurity in the country or face impeachment. The implication of this is that by the time you look at the vote of proceedings of yesterday, you are not likely to find it because it was not discussed at plenary. Meanwhile, the former Senate leader, Majority Leader Yahya Abdullahi, says that the Senate was unable to agree on the motion to impeach the president. The Senate, he says, resolved to give 6 weeks for all their resolutions and other moves to be implemented by the government. Otherwise, they will look into the Constitution and address the issue from the constitutional state point of view. On this same issue, the Minister of Information also said yesterday that government is working 24 hours to bring the situation under control. He revealed that there's going to be another Security Council meeting today. The president is not taking the security situation lightly. He says some measures are being taken, but they cannot be discussed in the open. Government is concerned and will not abandon its responsibility. Meanwhile, at the House of Representatives, they adjourned plenary to proceed on their annual vacation for 7 weeks. The House is to resume in September 20th. Meanwhile, in supporting the motion for the vacation, the minority leader Ndudu Elumelu enjoined members to go back to their constituency because Abuja, according to him, is no longer safe. The presiding Deputy Senate President, Honorable Idris Wasi, chided the minority leader and said, no one should play politics with security. He says it is everybody's business, and adding that Abuja and all parts of the country will be secured. The other interesting story which Kyria read is that a Nigerian baker, the managing director of a bakery, has advised that bakers, rather than lament on the high cost of inputs of bread, should look for alternative. And he has suggested that there is an indigenous potato, what he described as orange flesh potato, as a possible substitute for wheat. And one begins to wonder what became of that long project in about some 4 years ago about using cassava as a substitute or to supplement for bread.
The previous administration took it higher, to a high level when Akinwumi Adesina, was the Minister of Agriculture. He took it to a point where, every Nigerian, was talking about it, cassava bread. As a matter of fact, some bakers took that up, and have some sections of their production line dedicated to cassava, bread. But along the line, it fizzled out. Even when this administration came to power, there was some moves, towards sustenance of that project. But it didn't last, and it just fizzled out. And if that had continued, we would have been enjoying the benefits of that now, because of course most of us would have been familiar with cassava meat bread. I have taken that. If the minister then was going from one state to the other to show that look, this is possible, and we have this cassava in abundance. Yet we are relying on importing wheat. There's nothing wrong in having wheat bread, but you could have them side by side, cassava and wheat. As a matter, so you have a choice to make.
I think eventually, whether we like it or not, necessity will become the mother of invention. Again, if we were to go back, some few years back, there was a deliberate wheat program, and Jigawa, Dutse, and Borno State were the lead producers of wheat in this country. What became of it? We start very fine programs, but somehow along the line, we don't seem to sustain it.
Well, listen to Professor Gambo. He's a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria.
Yes.
He's Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture at Yobe State University in Damaturu. And he will explain to you that inconsistency in policy implementation is the bane of the agricultural subsector of the economy. Now, if wheat farmers don't have off-takers, if wheat farmers are not certain of price stability, if they don't get their inputs at the right time, and the kind of things that are needed to be done to ensure that whatever crop we consider to be a national crop of priority, such as we took rice, then you are going to have epileptic production of that grain, and it's a very critical grain. Perhaps the rapprochement that Russia and Ukraine have reached with regard to grain exports could provide some relief in the meantime, because they're saying that Russia has agreed to create an aperture for the export of Ukrainian wheat through grains. Of course, that will include wheat, because Ukraine it's one of the world's largest producers of wheat.
Both
But
Ukraine and Russia.
yeah, but that's only one leg of the that's only one leg of the story. Now, the Kyria was talking about Akinwumi Adesina. Yeah, Akinwumi Adesina at the ministerial platform here in Abuja, at the Federal Executive Council, bread that was baked with cassava component was eaten live. I mean, I also took some of the bread, and if you went to some of the shops in town, you had them on their. you had them on their shelves.
Yes.
So no questions are asked. And sometimes our policy direction is unidirectional. In other words, we face one thing and then we neglect every other thing else. You say rice, rice, rice. Okay, we have attained self-sufficiency in rice, but look at the price of rice. And other things are also critical. Even if you were to provide all the wheat that bakers need today, are you going to also get a substitute for diesel?
Yeah, that's just it. As a matter of fact, you know, when that cassava bread initiative came, and I mean, many Nigerians didn't believe it was going to be a reality, you know, but it came to the fore, and everybody started eating cassava bread then, but it fizzled out. Like all other projects and programs of government that the operators have refused to, you know, allow to metamorphose into a reality that people can now, you know, have confidence in or depend on. For instance, if you have cassava bread in Nigeria today, we wouldn't be bothering so much about Ukraine, Russia, war, and what have you. And the window now opened, you know, at the Black Sea to allow the Ukrainian grains, you know, to leave that Black Sea port. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have any grain. You know why? Because there's high competition. But just Southeast Asia, Asians,
yes, the whole of the Arab world.
Yeah, that's
whole of the
this
Arab
so-called-
world.
that's the
Bread,
flower crescent.
yes.
The flower crescent. If you recall, at the beginning of the Ukraine-Russian conflict, I raised it here because Egypt is Africa's largest consumer of wheat exports from Ukraine, Russia. Egypt then started taking domestic measures to ensure that the shortfall in supplies could be augmented. But what was our response? And that's part of the reason why we're having this now. And that's one. But there's something else that should also be of interest. Let me throw this in before we wrap it up. I know that you are itching to say something. No, we keep talking about mining. Sometimes our voices are louder than the outcome of our exertions. In Angola, an Australian mining operator has discovered the largest pink diamond in 300 years.
Pink diamond.
Pink. It's called a Lula Rose. That diamond is 170 carat. They have discovered it, and of course, by the time it is auctioned, chances are that based on the cost of about 5 years ago, of $71.2 million for nearly 60 carat pink diamond, you're going to find out the price of that. So why am I saying this? We keep talking about mining. You're almost deafened by the noise we make about mining, but what is the outcome? What we're having is just sometimes gold panning, people who are just scratching the surface. But look at what serious countries would do about mining, because you get a company, you get real investors to get in there and then buy the products. If you recall, years ago, very little was heard about Angolan oil. And at some point, Angola overtook Nigeria as the largest producer of oil on the African continent. We should learn from these things and then get our acts together.
If we look deep, it's not impossible we'll find that pink diamond in Nigeria.
Well, the thing is that I'm one of those who wouldn't want to hear anything about mining, planning, and whatever, because, you know, I mean, you've been interviewing people, ministers, DGs, directors of all sorts, you know, mining matters for over 10 years, and we keep hearing the same thing over and over again. I heard it today again, you know, what I've had over 10 years ago. So what is the sense in it?
Roadshow.
What is the sense in it? So if you keep hearing one thing for 10 years, then that thing is impossible. That's what it means, you know, it's impossible. It's impracticable. All right. Before we round up, we don't have time anymore. I'm just wondering why BBC reporters could question the record, you know, at which our lady who won the 100 meters hurdle in the ongoing athletics in Oregon.
It's simple.
These two reporters
it's
are
because
questioning
their commentator,
12.12 seconds.
Mike Johnson,
yes,
is their commentator who was working for them, has impugned the record. But don't forget that Usain Bolt said Super Toby.
Okay.
Endorsing it.
All right.
In the meantime, the same BBC, if you read their online reports, they were showering praise on their own sprinter, Aisha Smith, who won the bronze in 100 meters. You know, page after page was dedicated to her. And they're also writing that, maybe it's the shoes, the spikes on the shoes that she wore.
They were wondering.
No. We don't. Let's not extrapolate what they said. She has set a new world record, 12.12. and the rest of the world, including us Nigerians, we are celebrating our daughter.
And,
Simple.
simple.
Yeah.
And Michael Johnson said that you don't beat Kendra Harrison by such margin. That was the record holder
Well,
before. So,
it
but
is,
he's
it is not uncommon
that's
with,
what sports
the
is all
British.
about.
There was a time Nigeria played football with England.
Yes.
There was a free kick. Austin J.J. Okocha kicked it. It went over the ball. You know what the commentator said? I wonder if goalposts are that high in their country. Then Becker came and took another free kick, and he went over the bar. You know what the commentator said? He said, no, he must have hit the ball on the wrong side of the pitch.
All right, thank you very
Well,
much.
yeah,
indeed.
very interesting comment. The same Michael Johnson had a world record in 400 meters for many years,
Yes.
until the South African Van Niekerk broke that record. And I think maybe that's why he's talking now.
Okay, we end it here. We'll come back again tomorrow for another session of newspaper review. Bayo, thank you for being here as always. Now, this is Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service. Our topic today is focusing on the aviation industry. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll get on with that. All right, we thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Our program today focuses on issues in Nigeria's aviation industry. And now let's get our correspondent Garba Natala to give us a lead into the conversation.
Air transport, being a critical aspect of the country's economic development, has become a hub for core commercial airline business. In Nigeria, the aviation sector has long been facing challenges, making it difficult for domestic carriers to thrive when compared with their counterparts from other countries. For years, the aviation sector is known for its immense contribution to the nation's economy and provided jobs for thousands of Nigerians. The narrative has changed, considering the nature of antecedents Nigerian air travelers are currently going through at airports, like flight cancellations and delays that comes without prior notice and waiting for several hours before boarding their flights, and without stating the reasons for the delays. This development caught the attention of the Aviation Committee at the National Assembly to investigate why.
Providing funding and keeping the industry is good, but again, one aspect which must be equally catered for is the well-being of the workers in the aviation industry.
On account of the looming availability of aviation fuel, it is at its all-time high, which operators cited as their major problem. The high demand for forex has also taken its toll on both airliners and passengers, which pushed airfare higher as carriers compete to remain afloat. Therefore, disruptions in local flights are imminent. To further increase the pressure in the aviation industry, domestic carriers came to terms based on their limited capacity to operate with low profit margins, lack of funding and implementation of policies, levies to various government agencies, taxation, and many more, adds to the burden despite the huge investments made by successive governments. For experts, Nigeria can surmount its challenges. However, what are stakeholders suggesting moving the industry forward? How can the plan of ease of doing business come to play in the sector? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will provide answers to these questions and more.
Atala, thank you very much for that background. With us to discuss issues around the aviation sector, let's welcome here in the Abuja studios, Godi Ike, who is an aviation industry analyst. Godi, we're glad to have you this morning.
Oh, wonderful. Good morning.
Okay. And from our Lagos Network Center, we've been joined by a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, is Captain Roland Iyayi. Captain Iyayi is the former managing director of the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, NAMA. Captain Iyayi, glad to have you this morning.
Kingsley, Good Morning Nigeria.
Also via Zoom this morning is Captain Musa Nuhu, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. DG, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. We are soon to be joined by another guest via Zoom when the connection is right, and he's Bello Ahmed Al-Khali. When that connection is well put in place, we'll be able to establish link with him. For now, you are welcome to the program, gentlemen. Kingsley.
All right, but let's begin with Captain Roland Eyaye. As I said, is a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, along, of course, with God Ike, who's here with us in the Abuja studios. Captain Roland, just what is happening in the aviation industry? I mean, the much that one can see on the surface is, for instance, earlier this year, airline operators announced that for a 1 hour domestic flight, the least fare will be 50,000 naira. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission waded in and directed the airline operators to revert to the former fares, but the airline operators were adamant. And just a couple of weeks ago now, the airline operators have further increased airfares for at least a 1 hour flight within the country. Varies anytime, anything from 60 to 70, sometimes depending on the time you are booking your flights, it could be up to 100,000. We hear stories about aviation fuel, we hear stories about cancellation and delays. Is there a crisis in the aviation industry?
Indeed, the industry is in dire straits. I mean, there's a crisis in the aviation sector. We cannot run away from a fact. We talk about fuel. Fuel has been a major consideration. It's been a major component of operations. And typically, we're talking about 40% to 50% of your direct operating cost as fuel. Now, there was a time you could buy fuel at 118 naira per liter. At the point in time, we had an exchange rate of about 150 to the dollar. Today, a liter of fuel is about 1,000 naira per liter. So when you look at the way, the trajectory, it is showing that, you know, the cost of fuel has gone over 5 times what is used to, what it used to be in the last 24 months. Now, the margins airlines have is less than 5% of their total. So if you're talking about a situation where fuel, a component that sort of comprises about maybe 40 to 50% of your cost, having gone up about 5 times the cost, it is, I mean, there's no way you can look at an airline sustain the same pricing for airline tickets. So it is impossible to sustain what airlines have been doing over the years. So invariably, what we have now is a situation where it's been compounded by the fact that there's a scarcity of foreign exchange for airlines to even be able to acquire spares to maintain their operations safely. So with all of these factors, it's become very important that airlines actually review their pricing to indicate the current trends. I mean, there's no way they can sustain fares that are below cost. You must produce at a particular cost. And for you to stay in business, it has to be cost plus profit. Right now, I'm not even sure airlines are able to mark up on the cost, let alone talk about profit. So it's a very, very difficult situation airlines are faced with.
All right. Thank you indeed. And let's go to Musa Nuhu, DG and CEO of Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Well, my question is doing the same line with the first one put out by my colleague, and that has to do with take an overview, you know, of the industry, you know, and give us your own view with respect to the current situation in that industry. You can be specific, you know, in terms of you know, making references to some of the factors that have, of course, plunged the nation into the current situation in the aviation industry.
Thank you very much. We cannot look at the aviation industry outside the current economic situation in Nigeria. As the previous speaker, Mr. Roland mentioned, we indeed have a crisis. And first of all, is the scarcity and availability of Jet A1, which is a significant component of the direct operating cost of any airline. The increase in price has gone about 5 times over what it used to be in less than a year. And to compound matters, not only the scarcity of the foreign exchange, but the exchange rate itself has deteriorated significantly, doubly increasing the cost of part of the airline's operations in terms of maintenance, training of pilots, buying spare parts. And on the Jet A1 fuel, due to the crisis in Ukraine and Russia, the international price of Jet A1 has increased significantly. At the same time, the value of the Naira has decreased significantly per the dollar, thus giving a jeopardy to the cost of airline operations in Nigeria. Indeed, we do have a serious crisis. We've started the financial economic health audit of some couple of airlines, and what do I see? It's not sustainable. A significant amount of their money is wiped out in terms of just getting Jet A1 to fall the aircraft. Unfortunately, flight delays, cancellations come. When an airline goes out, it takes hours to negotiate. And some of the airlines, because of previous debt, they have with the fuel suppliers, the fuel suppliers insist on cash payment. So if you're operating a flight, you have to get 4 or 5 million, depending on how much fuel they're paying to pay the fuel suppliers cash to get the fuel. So all this contribute to making an already bad situation worse. And for us and the Civil Aviation Authority, it just increases the amount of work we have to do, because we have to continue heightened surveillance on the airline to ensure that despite these difficulties, which we acknowledge, they still comply with safety regulations. So it's not the best situation, but we can assure the traveling public who are doing their best. We're working with the airlines to ensure the continuous safe operations of all flights.
Captain Musa Nuhu, thank you very much for your opening comments. But while your Zoom connection is still good, well, let's maximize your presence with us at the moment. Can you indicate to our viewers the extent of the impact all of this probably would have on the larger economy? Yes, you say that the issues in the aviation industry cannot be isolated from what's happening in the larger economy. But to the extent that the aviation sector itself is getting squeezed, what are the likely ripple effects?
Could you please repeat the question?
All right. I'm sure that you heard the preface to my question. What are the likely ripple effects of the situation that the aviation industry currently is in Nigeria? That is to say, what is the knock-on effect on other subsectors of the economy if this situation were to persist with aviation?
Well, over the last couple of years, due to some challenges and some difficulties we're having by the land transportation, aviation has become the preferred means of transportation. I remember when I used to work in presidential air fleet, I drove to Kano under 5 hours and I could come back the same day. But these days, there's no way I'm going to take that risk. A lot of people will not take that risk. They go by air. So aviation has become more critical than what it's been to the economy. And with the difficulties the airlines have, it's going to have a significant impact on economic activities. Aviation globally is known as a catalyst for economic growth, for economic development. So we just all have to sit down together and find a solution out of this. It's going to have, if airlines start shutting down, or we have to shut down airlines or suspend their operations due to the inability to continue operating safely because of the difficult situations they have. And it's going to have a significant negative impact on the economy. People can travel, businesses will be affected, goods and services cannot be transported. So it's something we must all work together. We're all in this together. We must put our hands, both the government, the agencies, the industry. We must all put our hands together and come up with solutions that will solve this. If the situation as is just not sustainable, it's just it just can't go on. And recently we had to suspend the operations of Dana because what we've seen financially is not sustainable, and we had some concerns because of those financial issues, the consequences, and on the safety of operations. So it's not the best situation. In fact, it's a horrible situation we find ourselves in. But and I keep saying to the traveling public, we will keep doing our best to ensure the safety of operations. And sometimes we might take decisions that are not very palatable to the traveling public, but priority for us is safety of operations. But also, aviation is a business; it's a catalyst of economic growth. So we just have to find a solution to get the conundrum, the industry out of the conundrum it finds itself. And as I said earlier, this is all part and parcel of the status of the national economy. The devaluation of the naira is more devastating on aviation because of a significant part of its component is foreign spare parts, acquiring the aircraft themselves, getting the spare parts, training of flight crew, getting manuals, and a lot of things are all done in foreign exchange. And the scarcity and the devaluation of the naira vis-a-vis the dollar is a double whammy on the airlines, on the airline industry.
Okay, thank you once again. Let's return to the studio here, where we have Godike, an aviation industry analyst. You've listened to the first two speakers, on this matter. The situation is that it is bad now for the aviation industry. There are so many factors that led to that. Some of them have been highlighted by the other speakers. As a matter of fact, Nuhu described it as a kind of conundrum, in the sector. We all know that, of course, during the COVID-19 era, of course, all the aviation industry globally, had the issue. But I think the most have returned to normalcy in terms of the normal operation of the industry. But in Nigeria, we seem to have a very peculiar issue of aviation fuel, which has affected the operational capacity and ability of the operators of the industry. As an expert, what is your view about the entire situation before we go to remedials, that could be factored in?
Kilian, excuse me. What's going on is very, very sad, quite sad. You must know and agree that aviation is the fastest way to move goods and services around. No other means can come near, the aviation sector in doing this, and therefore the economy of any nation, not just Nigeria, heavily depends on healthy and stable aviation sector. Now, what's going on right now is practically grinding the economy of Nigeria to a halt. And if we get to the point that airlines cannot operate anymore, we can jolly well say bye-bye to our lovely nation, if you understand, the message I'm sending across. Now, having said that, it would seem to me that those that are in positions of authority to have things happen in a particular way in order for us to proactively, resolve issues that we have or we may have in the future. It would seem to me that it's either they are not thinking, or that they don't care, or that we have a reckless attitude to, resolving issues of our nation. Because I remember about a month ago, I was on one of your programs in this same, NTA, and I pointed out, especially when we started feeling the effect of the war Russia versus Ukraine, and the effect on the products, that is the hydrocarbon products that come from Russia. Because the trick of what has been going on actually is that most of these products, come from Russia, but then our NMPC would import from Europe, and the impression would be that it was European products that we were having, but it was actually business game. It will come from Russia and get to Europe, and then we place order, and it's supplied to us as if it's emanating from there. And until sanctions began to take effect, nobody realized, a whole lot of people didn't know that the product we were consuming were Russian products. And then that time, I said that the trajectory I was seeing, if you recall, was that in a few weeks from the time I made that last appearance, that aviation fuel will hit 1,000 naira a liter. And I remember the lady who was interviewing me then said, "No, don't say that." I said, "No, it's not about not saying that. I haven't seen anything on ground that the government, was doing to stop that trajectory." Excuse me. Now, here we are. It's just been confirmed that we have hit that figure, and it's totally unsustainable. There is no way airlines can be paying 1,000, naira for a liter of aviation fuel, which constitutes anywhere between 40 and 50% of their operational cost. And then you think that they would, do that, profitably enough. Not even profitably, but safely enough to have enough money to keep maintaining the airplanes, because airplanes is all about maintenance. I often say to anyone that bothers to listen that airplanes don't get old. It's all about making sure you keep the checks, the schedule of the checks. And sometimes I make the comparison, and I say to anyone that listens, listen, a 30-year-old, Boeing 737, for instance, that is due for a C or D check, and it's sincerely done. It's a safer airplane than a 6-month-old airplane that is due for an air check and it is not done. I would rather fly the 30-year-old that has done its C or D check, as the case may be, successfully, than fly a 6-month-old looking so sweet and nice, but air check is due, but it's not done. So we are grinding to a halt as a nation.
Economically,
economically,
with regard to the aviation sector.
yes, economically speaking. Now, I want to recall that I made mention at the time that government needed to do something quickly at that time to ensure that these products found their way, into Nigeria in such a way that the price would not, skyrocket out of control and go over the bar. I had suggested that government should license more companies and individuals of high net worth that can afford to bring this product in, rather than the monopoly that would seem to be, dealing with virtually NMPC being the only ones, bringing it in.
And the operators have asked for license. Is that a possible thing?
Well, the response at that time when I made that recommendation was that government had made it clear that the NMPC was not, or rather, the government was not going to, license more people or even intervene in terms of giving subsidizing the cost. Yes, because I had recommended at that time that why the licensing of more people was to take place, that we were also going to have government subsidize the product that we have now, so that the airlines will be buying them, and I recommended about 90 days, say 3 months, so that those that have been licensed who can now, import this product possibly directly from, from Russia. If anybody says, oh, because of sanctions, this is not possible, that possible, consult me. Because at the moment, I am helping some organization somewhere to have these products, coming. There are ways to have them done, but it will seem that I don't know what the matter is, really. Why, when we have challenges, we seem to be docile. We seem to be just folding our arms and watch things slide down, the lane until it hits the ground. So it's quite frustrating and very painful.
Okay, Godike, thank you very much. Let's pause you. We are having another guest with us via Zoom, Mohammed Ahmed Al-Khali, Managing Director and CEO of the Northeast Regional Schedule. A regional shuttle, rather, not a schedule. Northeast Regional Shuttle. Bello Ahmed Al-Khali, Managing Director and CEO. You can see him there on the right side of your screen. Well, before you came on, the DG of NCAA and Captain Rola AIA, former Managing Director of NAMA, and of course, Godike, who just finished speaking. We're talking about the challenges with regard to procurement of aviation fuel and forex. How aggravating are these issues, and what has been the experience of your own service?
Well, the DG, NCAA, Captain Musanu, Captain Roland Iyai have all spoken. They have nailed the coffin into what is happening right now in the Nigerian aviation industry. It's so sad, it's so scary, it is such an issue that over time nobody has taken serious to do anything about it. We've been talking, I can recall, I have had so many interviews with you regarding what is happening in the aviation industry in Nigeria today. It's all the same point we are raising day in, day out. And nothing, absolutely nothing has been done so far. Irrespective of the fact that whether we believe it or not, or whether we want to accept the fact that it's a dangerous venture, government has a very important role to play here, because transporting individuals of the nation from one point to another, it's a social service that the government should provide. We have businessmen that wake up in the morning to say, okay, I want to venture into an aviation sector business, which is capital intensive. I agree. But there are some certain soft spot and soft landings that government should provide for such businesses to thrive. I mean, we are talking about aviation fuel today. If you talk about aviation fuel today, that forms 50% probably today of the overhead cost of these airlines. Aviation fuel today is 1,000 naira per liter. I cannot see how somebody operating an airline can buy fuel for 1,000 liters per liter, dependent on how much are the tickets selling for today. We are talking about the forex availability, the exchange rate as it is today. Is really appalling. I could see in the face of the DG how seriously concerned and worried he is. It is very, very appalling. It is extremely scary as of today. I really don't want to, but if I am in a position to advise the operators today, I will advise the operators to close shop. If they close shop for 1 week, I can tell you something drastic definitely will have to be done to arrest the situation, because we are not getting anywhere. You cannot see Forex to buy your spare parts. You cannot see Forex to bail out your airplanes that are undergoing C check. You cannot see Forex to lease airplanes. you cannot see forex to pay for your crew training, then what are we talking about? Aviation industry is about an aircraft, about a safe aircraft, about spare parts, about well-trained crew that you are sending abroad for training, because we don't have the training facilities in Nigeria. You don't buy aircrafts in Naira. You don't buy spare parts in Naira. You don't train your crew in Naira. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we have the fuel crisis, which is also, I believe, connected with the dollar issue in the world today. We have the issue of the forex. These are the two factors that brings about safety in the aviation industry in Nigeria. For goodness sake, the DGNCA is a regulatory person. All he does is to make sure these airplanes that are flying are safe. But today, he's entangled with negotiations with airlines and fuel operators, suppliers, how this one is either solvent or this company is not solvent. That is not his job. So now he's entangled with other responsibilities that are weighing him down, that are weighing the industry, that are supposed to be the ones looking at these airlines to be safe, with a different issue altogether. So it is really an unfortunate situation we are finding ourselves today. It is really a situation whereby we all have to agree, including the DG and CAA, the managing director of FAN, the managing director NAMA. We have to sit down and agree that, look, these airlines, whether we like it or not, if we do not help them, then they are bound to close shop. This is just where we're headed to. Unfortunately, I've said enough, and I believe every one of us here will say the same thing I am saying. We are in a critical situation in the aviation industry of Nigeria today. Whether we like it or not, we have to wake up, we have to understand, we have to propose solutions to this, or else there will be serious point of time that all these airlines will close shop because they may not be able to operate any longer.
Thank you. In fact, you're talking from the point of knowledge and experience as well, since you are the Northeast Regional Shuttle. Shutting down, for 1 week or so, please, let's not get to that, because if you watch in the situation, because of course the entire economic indices and operation is like a symbiotic relationship. If the aviation hooks up, of course it's going to affect other aspects of our economic life. Let me bring in this, and I want to ask Captain Musanhu to respond to it, and that's the issue of the federal government giving a nod to the commencement of operation by the Nigerian Air, directing that aircraft be leased for that. And I was wondering, and as a matter of fact, I discussed with my colleague initially as to, if this happens, how would the airline be operated? How would they also source their own aviation fuel to be able to operate? So does this bring in a sign of the fact that the government wants to take a drastic measure to deal with the current situation in the aviation industry? What would that bring, into the industry if Nigerian Air becomes a reality?
Well, thank you very much. The decision to establish Nigerian Airline is a policy issue going on by the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Aviation. We, as a regulator, just we're neutral to everybody, whether you're government or private. We just ensure that you meet and comply with all our regulatory requirements, standard recommended practices before you're issued an air operator certificate. They will bring their business model reviewed. How they fuel the airline, well, that's up to the management of the company. That's a commercial decision. That's a business decision. We do not involve ourselves in this specific business decision. But as long as they meet all our regulatory requirements, just like any other airline has met, we'll give them this certificate, the necessary certificate to operate. They have already gotten the commercial certificate, which is the air transport license, and they're in the process of getting their air operator certificate. So at the date and time they comply with all requirements, we give them that certificate to operate. We do not make business decisions for them. The management of the company, whoever that is, that's their own responsibility. But of course, even when we give them the air operator certificate, we will follow up with surveillance like just we do with other airlines to ensure they are compliant with the terms and conditions of that certificate.
All right. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Captain Musa Nuhu. We'll come back to you presently. Let's return to Captain Roland Eyaye in our Lagos Network studios on Victoria Island in Lagos. And of course, this is also an issue that I would like the other guests to pay attention to so that we can have some clearer understanding of just precisely what's going on. Some weeks ago on Good Morning Nigeria, when we also took on the aviation sector, Chris Aligbe, I'm sure you are all familiar with him in the industry, raised the point. And he said that in terms of sourcing for Forex, the airline operators were in a tight situation. And he cited the example of him being in Abuja here and being with the Minister of Aviation, had a Sirica, and that they had to go along with the airline operators to the central bank to be pleading for access to Forex. And to us, that was quite shocking. Why would you then be pleading for Forex to service the airline industry, considering the items that you have to pay for in Forex? Is the expectation that airline operators would also be going to Zone 4 or be going to Lagos Airport? These are locations where you have parallel market and be buying at the parallel market rate, or those who bring in Jet A1 fuel, are they also going to the parallel market to go and get their money for aviation fuel? And each time we keep hearing that, oh, our foreign reserves have gone down or probably just gone up a little bit because we are a fuel import dependent nation. What monies are we using to pay for the importation? Are we paying at parallel market rate or we are paying at the I&E window? It's a bit confusing, I mean, to anyone who is not an insider listening to all of this. Where do airline operators, domestic airline operators, source their Forex from, and ordinarily, where should they get it from? Captain.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Ordinarily, domestic airlines source their Forex requirements through their bankers from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Unfortunately, because of the paucity of funds, you actually compete with other interests in the country to be able to access those funds through your bankers. We are aware of, the auctioning process, the bidding processes for funds through banks. Through your banks with the central bank. This has been on for several years and it hasn't changed to a large extent. In some cases, some airlines contracted to oil companies actually earn some foreign exchange, and they have been able to use that as a source, as a buffer, to be able to sustain their operations because they're contracted. But for domestic airlines that don't have any foreign exchange based contracts and all the rest of it, their dependence is on the foreign exchange reserve through the central bank. And they have to use their bankers to access those funds. Now, where that is not possible, obviously certain elements of their operations will be grounded. And we've seen that in, different issues arising from maybe delays in sending pilots, for instance, for recurrency checks, what you call simulated checks, or delays in having a C check done, asking for extensions from the Civil Aviation Authority, as recommended by the manufacturers. These are all things that are impacted adversely by the lack of availability of foreign exchange. And, because you don't have enough in the country, other sectors of the economy are competing with aviation, no doubt about that. And what that means is it might take forever, in some cases, for you to be able to access what you required about 3 months ago might come to you maybe 3 months later. And that doesn't help aviation. Aviation is a very dynamic industry. If you're not able to address the situation of today, and it's left for another week or two, naturally it gets compounded. And when it gets compounded, things get worse. So when you talk about the issue of safety, which the DG has actually harped on, this is what compounds that particular issue. When you have a need today and that need is not met, even though you have the resource to be able to meet it, because you're dependent on foreign exchange, it becomes very difficult to be able to now say in 2 weeks you'll be able to meet the same need, because now there are other needs that have sort of mounted on top of that. So you find that the forex requirement that is not being met by the central bank to the airlines through their banks is is a situation that's compounded most of the operations of the different airlines in the country, and because it is getting worse, chances are more airlines will be grounded. There's no doubt about that. Very few airlines have the financial resource to be able to sustain operations at this level. So it is very important that there's a major, the government has to take some major steps at this point in time to ensure that the availability of the fuel and forex at affordable prices. Because, I mean, availability is one thing, affordability is another thing. It's important to be affordable. The forex exchange rate at this point is totally unaffordable and cannot sustain the industry. So that has to be addressed. So there has to be some measures by government to ameliorate the issues the airlines are facing at this point in time. Otherwise, we can expect to see more airlines suspend operations or go out of business completely in the coming weeks.
You made valid points indeed, and we are going to also expatiate that more. And I want to engage Godike, the aviation expert, in this direction. You said that, look, that the other businesses are competing with the aviation industry in terms of procurement of forex and all that. How many businesses are competing with the aviation? Is it manufacturing sector? Are we really manufacturing the real sense of it? So what are those huge and linked businesses more than aviation, which connects the entire businesses, no matter how the ICT has permeated the entire business, enclave, you must have to deal with traveling, making movement locally and internationally. So that is it. Now, is there any shoddy deal or racketeering, between operators, the bankers, and the CBN and what have you, that has made it difficult, if not impossible, for them to have access to forex? Or do you expect them, like my colleague was asking, to go to the parallel market to go and start getting forex for them to be able to bring in aviation fuel? So we've got to come in here. You know why? Because one, Dana Air, of course, because of a near crash, has been, the license has been withdrawn, and now Aero Contractor for internal issues, has gone down. Right. So, are these the resultant effect of what is biting the aviation industry presently?
Of course. I mean, if you get to a point where you can't continue, what makes sense is to close shop. And for the other airline you just mentioned, not Dana, Aero. Aero is an airline that I have great respect for, I must tell you, in the sense that all through the lifespan of that airline, anytime they are out to serve, they make sure they are top of the range and give good services. And if they have any challenging situation that can affect safety, they rather will ground their airplane than manage. And that's my respect for that. I don't know any of the owners, to tell you the truth. But as a flying individual who's flown virtually all the airlines at one time or the other that exist in Nigeria, I have great respect for their attitude. As soon as they find that they can't go on, they close shop. Whenever they are ready to go on again safely, they open up. And that's quite good. So for Dana, I don't want to really, talk about them because I won't forget very quickly.
I was just asking whether those the impact of what the situation is now in the industry, are they being affected negatively?
Yes, they are being affected negatively, and because they had their own issues up until this time that we're now having this special situation that we've got on our hands. There is even no way you can import aviation fuel using black market money. It's not, you don't place order for these products, with cash. It's purely financial instrument business that it is. It's not as straight and smooth as it sounds. It's quite complicated. You've got to, you've got to open up your letter of credit, place the order that a bank, will hold in place while the supplier, supplies, and it is proven that the right thing and acceptable stuff is being supplied, and the volume in question that is confirmed perhaps by SGS or any of the approved inspection agencies before the money that is placed on instrument now gets to the person that is selling. So the structure of the oil business itself even makes it impossible for you to consider dealing with cash. It's only if you want to place order for equipment, and perhaps you have somebody out there who wants to buy on your behalf, and those kind of stuff. You will begin to mess around with issues of cash business. So
if that is the case, why the apparent benchmarking of, if you may, the prices of Jet A1 to the parallel market?
Corruption. You want to hear it?
Yes.
Hear it loud and clear. Corruption. A whole lot of messy things are going on in our financial houses, including round tripping, including racketeering. A whole lot is going on, and it's either we don't have the courage as a nation and as a government to really wade into this messy activities going on and put an end to the nonsensical things going on, or that those that should put an end to it are part of the problem, or perhaps benefiting from what's going on. There are no two ways. You see, sometimes I get really upset because when things go on in the country, it makes every one of us, you, me, and the rest of all civilized and educated people we have in this country, these things make us look extremely, extremely foolish. And yet we know that we are not foolish. We are just incapacitated because of, power.
All right, go to UK. Let's pause you. And just before we go on this short break, while we're still on sourcing Forex, I want to bring in Bello Ahmed Al-Khali one more time. Bello Al-Khali, CEO of North East Regional Shuttle. What's been your experience with trying to source Forex for your operations? That's one leg. And second leg, we hear from time to time of airlines going to neighboring countries to go and refuel before coming back to Nigeria. Maybe these are international operators, but there appears to be no aviation fuel crisis, say for instance along the West African coast or elsewhere on the African continent that I have read about. Why is our own case unique?
Thank you very much for that question, and I really appreciate that question, especially on the issue of the Forex. Right now, I can tell you, I'm not in Nigeria, I am in Namibia. I found an aircraft in Namibia that I needed to lease. I applied for Forex. Central Bank approved Forex for me. In January, as at today, of the $540,000 we were looking for, it's only $220,000 that was paid to my partners. Can you imagine January to July, I am battling to get an aircraft into Nigeria. The DG NCAA will bear witness to me that probably he has never had a situation like this. I was lucky. I have a partner that has an airplane that probably, because it is Namibia, they don't have much passengers, they don't have anything to do with the aircraft. The aircraft has been sitting down the hangar. Even yesterday, I saw the aircraft. But there is no way they could release the aircraft to me if I don't pay them the money. So, as a beginner, I wanted to say, okay, fine. Let's find another alternative. Let us look inwards. Can we partner with an airline in Nigeria? Yes, of course we could partner with an airline in Nigeria. So we partner with an airline in Nigeria. They are ready to help me. They are ready to deploy an aircraft for me, but we have to pay them. So what do? I have to come to Namibia to seek for my money to be repaid back to me, simply because I could not meet up with my contractual obligation. It's not me, but it's the fact that I could not source forex. It's a very serious situation that we are in as regards to forex. Whether you like it or not, you can ask any of the operator in Nigeria today. They have to make do with other sources of getting their forex. It's never through the CBN, because, like somebody rightly pointed out, probably there are other industries that are needing such forex, maybe, as far as the central bank is concerned, much better than the aviation industry. So I don't know why we should be all the time talking about this and nothing is being done about it. So at the end of the day, this is the situation we are in. There is no forex availability. All the other airlines that are operating probably may have to go through the black market to solve the forex of buying their equipment or buying their spare parts. Our partners, for example, I found them an engine here in Namibia. They bought the engine for $700,000. I can tell you they didn't get their forex through CB and they had to buy it through the black market. Can you imagine how much that will be as of today? As at the time they bought it, the dollar was 580 naira. So, I mean, it's just an impossibility when you talk about forex. Because of probably maybe the situation I'm in, I forgot even your second question. Could you please come with your second question apart from the issue of the forex?
Hello, Ahmed. Thank you very much for the explanation that you have provided. Well, you're not in Nigeria. You said you are in Namibia. The second question I asked was about aviation fuel. That we hear that some airlines operating into Nigeria or in Nigeria go to neighboring countries to refuel, and that I haven't read about Jet A1 crisis, say on the west coast of Africa or indeed anywhere else in Africa, and therefore why is our case unique?
Yeah, this has been going on over time. You can imagine an airline like British Airways. You think British Airways will come into Nigeria and wait for somebody to mess them around because there is no aviation fuel in Nigeria? Absolutely not. They operate out of Ghana. So Ghana has aviation fuel. They'll just get in Ghana and then take their aviation fuel, come into Nigeria, pick their passengers and go home. Most of these foreign airlines, that is exactly what they do. If as a local carrier, I have the opportunity to go to Ghana and buy fuel at half the rate that is available in Nigeria, why not? That's exactly what I'm going to do. Most of these airlines probably may not have the capacity, but I want to believe an airline like Air Peace that operates internationally will have a very good option because they operate into Accra, Ghana. So it is just a kind of a technical stop for them to go in there, take their fuel, and proceed to wherever they are going to. It is very sad that we find ourselves in this kind of situation, irrespective of whatever resources that we have available in Nigeria. I find it difficult to really understand what is going on. Why do we have to find ourselves in this kind of situation? These operators kill themselves to make sure to satisfy the traveling public. Why can't the government, please, for goodness sake, do something about this situation, forex and fuel? It is not beyond their capacity to handle this situation. This situation has to be handled. The traveling public are suffering today. I can tell you, my daughter wanted to get to Bauchi for 2 days running. She was stranded in Abuja because there is no fuel, max air, to fly into Bauchi. It's only max air that goes into Bauchi. So I'm here having sleepless nights about Nigeria. I'm here trying to settle a problem that was created for me by the Central Bank of Nigeria. I don't know how the situation will be in the next 1 month. It's very scary.
All right, we can really feel your pulse, really. I mean, my colleague was talking about the administrative costs, that you would have incurred, in trying to procure an aircraft from, Namibia, to Nigeria here. And since January, you've been, battling with, sourcing forex, so for you to do that. Well, it's very unfortunate. At this point, gentlemen, we'll take a short break. When we come back, the conversation continues. Stay with us. All right, welcome back, and we're glad that you're still with us on this edition of Good Morning Nigeria, where, of course, we have been x-raying the aviation industry. As a matter of fact, we've taken it from all dimensions, ramifications. And I want to bring back a DG of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority once more. Well, you are saddled with your primary responsibility of being head of a regulatory body, but you can see that you have directly or indirectly expanded your horizon, because you want to ensure that your own end is protected. You are now venturing into providing assistance, which is for us going the extra mile to see what you can do. Now, there are other agencies under the aviation industry. What are they doing as well? And in your understanding, what is the possibility of turning the situation around in the nearest future? We're gradually moving into a season, where, of course, when you get to the end of the year, that's when people travel across the globe, and of course, even internally in Nigeria. What is the possibility of getting things back to normalcy in the aviation industry?
Well, as I said, the aviation industry is a good reflection of any country's economy. And what we are experiencing right now in the aviation industry is a reflection of the micro and macroeconomic situation in Nigeria. We cannot isolate aviation from that. So it depends. When things get better around the country, aviation also will also get better. As so many speakers have alluded, the demand for foreign exchange is quite high by different sectors of the economy. And don't forget, we import most of our petroleum products, both the PMS, Iran, and kerosene and others. So that also takes a large chunk of foreign exchange earnings. And it makes foreign exchange very, very scarce for all sectors of the economy. And the double whammy part of it is the devaluation of the naira. It is scarce, and the devaluation makes it much more difficult for the airline industry. So the airline industry will improve once the economy improves, like almost every sector of the economy. Aviation is a major sector of the economy, but all sectors of the economy are suffering from what aviation is suffering. We are not in isolation of the economy. So it's for me as a regulator, it's a catch-22 situation. We want the industry to thrive economically, to grow, to contribute more to the gross domestic product, to create employment, to create revenue for the government through taxes. But at the same time, we have serious impediments to achieving these noble goals that we have to resort to ensure compliance with safety regulations. When we ensure those compliance, sometimes we have to take the difficult situation of stopping operations of some airlines because we know due to the financial insolvency, they cannot operate safely. So it is a catch-22 situation for us. Whichever way we go, we are supposed to promote and encourage. Yes, we have to promote and encourage growth, But without the basic resources in terms of foreign exchange, in terms of trade availability, the industry cannot grow. The industry is significantly and seriously hampered to the point some of the operators might not be able to comply with safety regulations. So safety comes first, but we're also supposed to promote the economy. But safety overrides everything at the end of the day, and we've done some financial economic health evaluations, some islands, and some technical audits, and we're compiling this. We want to see what the commonality, so that we can make recommendations on certain measures or certain policies or changes to our regulation that will be able to deal with these specific issues. The recovery of the industry depends on the recovery of the national economy at a good state. We cannot take aviation out of the economy and expect it to change and grow while the rest of the economy has not improved. We are part and parcel of the economy. We are just a sector, a critical sector of the economy. So what happens in the economic ecosystem affects aviation. It's like every other sector of the economy, and that's what it is. It is what it is, and we just have to do our best to see how we can work with the airlines, where we can be flexible without compromising safety standards at all. We'll be flexible, and I think we've done that with airlines over the last 2 years. We'll be flexible with them in many areas without compromising safety. But the compromise of this flexibility cannot override the other factors like scarcity and cost of jet air, scarcity and devaluation of the naira. That is just overriding or whatever we can do. I know the Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, has been working with the airlines, and even yesterday or 2 days ago, they had a meeting with the airline operators of Nigeria, trying to see how he can assist at the ministerial level with issues of foreign exchange availability, and see if there can be some sort of assistance or some sort of agreement on the availability and the price of jet air. And so the ministry is working at this level, the NTA is working at this level, and we just have to keep, we have no choice but to keep going that way until hopefully sometimes things get better and we're able to get things under control. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Captain Musa Nuhu, for your points, and more particularly for stressing the priority of safety over all other considerations. Once again, thanks a lot for what you said. Now, this is the home stretch of the conversation. We have only a couple of minutes left. I have two issues more to raise, so I'm going to barrel them and see Captain Roland EIA as briefly as you can take on these issues. The first one has to do with your experience in the aviation industry. Was there a time when Nigeria had, if you may, self-sufficiency in Jet A1 supply? In other words, refineries were able to supply our domestic needs of Jet A1. That's one question. Second leg of the question, which is related to operational costs. Airline operators in and out of Lagos have complained about the plan, if it hasn't already taken off, to shut down the local runway for 90 days in order to install new navigational aids. And they said that, look, this could be done at night, but that the airline operators do not appear to have received some fair hearing from, I think that's FAN, I believe. They said having to having to use the international runway will again multiply their costs at a time that they are already complaining about high overheads. What is the situation with the closure of the domestic runway? And then Jet A1 in the past, did we have the local self-sufficiency when our refineries were up and running? When our refineries were up and running.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Indeed, we've always, in the past we had, sufficiency of Jet A1 fuel, and we scarcely had to worry about supplies. I think in the past, yes, we could say the refineries, when it worked, we had adequate supplies. But obviously, where we are at this point is that 100% of the requirement for Jet A1 is imported. So I think that's the major departure from what it was in the past. Regarding the issue of, the closure of the 19 left in Lagos, it's a fun. It's a Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria that decided that it would want to have the runway closed for the purpose of being able to install some airfield lighting and stuff to be able to use the airport runway 24/7. Currently, after 6 p.m. in the evening, the domestic runway is not useful to any operator because it gets shut down because there's no airfield lighting. And I think that's one of the reasons why FAN said there was a need to close it down for 90 days in order to be able to install that. Now, having said that, what that does to domestic airline operations is, it adds an additional cost of fuel to the taxi of the airplane after landing at international, taxing to domestic, to deboard and board passengers. That's an additional cost the airlines at this point are thinking, well, we can do without. Because, if you're talking about the cost of fuel, and then you're now timing the installation of airfield lighting and the closure of the runway, at this particular point in time, the airlines actually feel it's not the appropriate time to do this, even though it's a required necessity so that the airport can become operational 24/7, but the timing is wrong. That's essentially why the airlines have come to say, look, can you consider a different time to do this so that at least we can...
We have to stop you there. I'm sorry about that. We are running short of time. We'll have to call it a day on this edition of the program. We appreciate all your comments and their contribution. Roland Iyayi, former Managing Director, Nigeria Airspace Management Agency, we appreciate your time and your contribution. Godike, Aviation Industry Analyst, we also like to thank you for being here this morning and sharing your thoughts with us.
My pleasure.
We had via Zoom Captain Musan, who DG CEO, Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Thank you indeed. And Bello Ahmed Alkali, MD CEO, Northeast Regional Shuttle, who reached out via Zoom from Namibia. We also like to thank you for waking up with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, that's it for us on the program. Thanks for tuning in. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian. I do have a great day.
You can